What is your first instinct when something really hard happens? That's what we're going to talk about today in Hebrews 12. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods talking about the Bible one small step at a time. Apparently it's winter again, so we're wearing long sleeves. What happens when something hard in your life happens? Is your first instinct is to usually go in one of two directions. Either I'm handling it, it's fine, or we spiral, and God must be punishing me. And we've all gone too far in that direction too. Something must be really wrong. Hebrews 12 flows right out of Hebrews 11 with another opening word, therefore. And we know when we see therefore, that means because everything that happened up to this point, that there's a hinge right here. Because of Abel, because of Enoch, because of Abraham, because of the cave dwellers, all that happened before us, therefore run. There's three movements in this, verses 1 through 3. Run the race with your eyes focused on Jesus. 4 through 13, God's fatherly discipline. And then verses 14 through 29 is this contrast between these two mountains. And it's going to be one of the most dramatic passages in the New Testament. When we're surrounded by the great clouds of witnesses about it, let us lay aside every weight and every sin that clings so closely. Let us run with endurance the race before us. This idea of this cloud of witness is everyone that we just spent chapter 11 learning about. The idea is that it's not a single cloud. It's a massive, all-enveloping cloud bank. And even Homer used it to describe the dense cloud of soldiers in the War of Troy. The image is overwhelming, meaning that you're completely surrounded by it. And now the question is whether or not these witnesses are actively watching us from heaven, like spectators in a stadium, or whether their lives are simply to testify through us through the scriptures. Most scholars lean towards the second reading. The word witnesses here is the same word that we get martyrs from, martyrdom. But essentially, it means a person who testifies. It's not what we think it is exactly. Their stories are the crowd, a metaphysical cloud. You're not running alone. You're being cheered on by this cloud of other stories that are much like yours too. The evidence that the finishing line is real, and the whole company of people who kept running before you are there too. I think about this. I bike. I like to bike. And if you're ever on a trail, you'll notice that if there's a rut in the middle of the trail and you'll ride into that rut, if you fix your eyes on that rut because you want to avoid it, you're like, oh no, don't go in the rut. Don't go in the rut. If you fix your eyes on it, you're going to go directly in the rut. What he's saying is exactly that. What you want to do when you're biking is you want to fix your eyes on where you want to go around the rut. In this case, fix your eyes on Jesus. It's the same with Peter when he walked out on water, right? He starts walking on water. And the moment he takes his eyes off Jesus and start looking at the waves around him, he sinks. This is not about willpower. It's about what you're focusing on. The weight and the entangling sins are two separate things, by the way. The weight isn't necessarily sinful. It's just something that slows us down. Maybe a good thing that you're carrying and it's too heavy. Sin that clings to you too closely suggests something that's wrapping around your legs and trips you up mid-stride. Think about those thorny vines, right? It's a specific pattern that keeps you down. Both of them have to go. And the center of everything about this, fixing our eyes on Jesus. He is the pioneer, meaning he went first, the perfecter of faith. The idea is that in the Greek, it was like a long procession. And it's the person, the leader who goes first, so everyone else can follow behind them. He didn't just point to the path, he walked it first, through suffering, through his death, through at the cross, and came out at the other side, seated at the right hand of God. He didn't just map it out for us, he ran the race first and gave it to us. He ran it, and now for the joy set before him. He endured looking past the cross. He's not looking at the rut of the cross, but looking at what the cross would accomplish. And thinking about this as like long distance hiking. You know the trail is doable because other people have done it. Well, you know what? Jesus did it. He made the path, and he knows that what goes on to someone who follows in this path, knowing someone that already finished the path, went through hardships, but made it out the other side, changes how we decide we're going to run this race too. Verse 3 is pastoral and corrective. He consider him. Look at what Jesus endured from the sinners, the contempt, the mockery, the abuse, the abandonment. And when you feel like your own hardship is unbearable, compare notes. The remedy for weariness is not more willpower. It is fixing. Why do you gotta say this? The remedy for weariness is not more willpower or fixing the circumstances. It's looking up and putting your eyes on Jesus. Wow. So when we get to verses 4 through 13, he says, you have not resisted to the point of shedding blood. That's how the section opens, and it's kind of bracing, I guess, in that way. The author is not dismissing what these people have endured. They have lost family, property, faced public shame, watched friends go to prison. Those are all real things. But the people in the chapter 11 that we talked about before, some of them were sawed in half. By that measure, the reader has not yet hit rock bottom of what faith might cost them. This is not, like a cold comfort. It's just letting you know you've suffered a lot, but it might not be the ultimate suffering. And it's the same for us. We do not in this country where I live, we face things, we face scorn. I live in a place that loves to scorn Christianity. However, it's not the ultimate payment, the ultimate price to pay. So he quotes then Proverbs 3, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, for the Lord's disciplines the ones he loves." So 2 responses get named right here, is that you, one, make light of it. If you're being disciplined, we'll talk about that in a minute, you're pretending it's not something happening. You spiritualize it away. Whatever, it's fine. And I do that all the time, by the way. And the other one is losing heart, collapsing under it, concluding that God is absent or angry with you or giving up with you. And honestly, both are understandable, and neither one of them is correct. The word in Greek for discipline is basically what a father does to form a child. Instruction, correction, consequences, training. The goal is not pain. The goal is the child becoming who they were meant to be. Pain might be part of the process, but it's not the point. The argument the author is making here is beautiful in its simplicity, that humans, fathers who discipline you, sometimes imperfectly and sometimes wrongly and sometimes too harshly, not standing by all discipline, but you respect a parent who cares enough for you to discipline you. I remember there was one particular time that my father disciplined me for something that I did not do. But you know what? I walked away impressed with him because it showed me how seriously he took this issue. And even though I didn't do it, I understood why he did what he did. There's a certain level of respect for a parent that disciplines you in a correct way, because you understand that is how much they love you and they want you to avoid that particular thing. So if a father on earth does that, how much more will a Father of spirits, our Father in heaven, who disciplines with complete knowledge, never wrongly, always does good, specifically so that we can share in his holiness. In the ancient world, an undisciplined son was shameful. I think it's still pretty shameful. It means the father didn't claim the child. It means the child grew up wild. Proverbs is full of all those kinds of comments. And so Jewish Christians reading this under persecution might have been reading their suffering as God's rejection. We saw that where Paul, people looked at Paul and all the punishment and suffering that Paul had gone under and said, that dude's screwing up. God's mad at him. He is messed up. And that is not the case. This is a reframe. Suffering is not evidence that God has abandoned you. It's evidence that God has claimed you as his own child. In verse 11, the discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later on, it yields peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. He doesn't say the pain is imaginary, it's real. He doesn't say that you should have felt fine or you should have just argued it away. You probably didn't. But he says that you will be trained by it, that you will be better for it and produce better fruit for it later. Spurgeon, a famous preacher, preached that farmers don't plant in spring and expect a harvest that same week. The fruit comes in its season, not on our schedule. And so then and we get that. Spurgeon preached that farmers don't plant in spring and then expect to harvest it the same week. Fruit takes time, and it comes in its own season, and it's not by our schedule. Verse 12 and 13 then goes on and strengthens, it says, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. This is from Isaiah 35. It make level paths so the lamed are healed rather than put out of joint. This is really interesting. I was like digging through this here, that it's personal and communal. Strengthen yourself, yes, so that you're not feeble and weak-kneed, but also live in a person that makes the road easier for the next person. Maybe the person who's limping, who is incapable of following this path, make it easier for him. Discipleship is about making it better for the next person, making it safer for the people who are following behind you and are in your company so that they struggle less. I think that's really incredible. Then goes on to talk about holiness and bitterness and Esau. So this was very, very interesting because it says that you should strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without it, no one will see the Lord. So there's two things here, peace and holiness, and it's easy to pull apart. The author puts them together. Holiness without peace becomes harsh and brittle. We've seen movies or we've known people like that they are holy without any peace and they are hard to deal with. Peace without holiness becomes soft faith that loses all of its edge, its truth. And we've seen people like that too, where they're so soft that God's word doesn't mean anything anymore. You need both. And you need them at the same time, in the same person, at the same moment. The warning that we see next is about this bitter root. And it goes all the way back to Moses warning Israel in Deuteronomy about a root producing poison among its people. There were all sorts of things going on with the people of the Exodus that had gone very badly. And this bitterness that persecution can bring can turn people away. And you heard it, right? We'll get to Exodus someday in the Bible in small steps, but the people were like, oh, we were in Egypt, we had plenty to eat and plenty to drink, and you dragged us out into this desert, and we're suffering now, right? People were getting bitter, and it was a poison that was poisoning them. And it can be hard. Think about it like, well, I followed Jesus, I lost everything, my family won't talk to me, God didn't protect me. Those people back in these readers of this original text would be saying that. That kind of anger left unaddressed doesn't stay personal. It starts to spread to other people. The bitter root defiles many, and what starts as a private wound can quietly poison a whole community around you. I mean, isn't that incredible? And it's not just true of the people of the book of Hebrews, it's true for us too. And now we get to Esau, who's a cautionary example. He was called godless, profane, someone who treats holy things as ordinary. Look at what he did. So he traded his birthright, the position he got as a firstborn son, right? The firstborn son frequently got the father's possessions, his farm, everything. And he traded away this covenant promise for a single bowl of stew. He wasn't dying of hunger. There was no indication that he was in any danger. He just wanted some soup. And so he just signed away his birthright, and it just felt abstract and far away and future. And that's exactly what the temptation is here. Just right here, instead of being theoretical, take a look at it. Don't sign away something that's eternal, something that's forever, for something that's right here, a bowl of soup right in front of you. And then the next verse is even harder. When he wanted to inherit the blessing later, so Esau eventually, is mad at Jacob, stalks Jacob, follows him. He wanted his birthright back. He was rejected. He found no place for repentance in his own life. He eventually sought it then with tears. But that doesn't mean that God withheld forgiveness from someone who genuinely wants it. Genesis 27 basically means Esau wanted back the material blessing. He didn't want back the covenant spiritual responsibility, which he despised. He mourned the consequences of what he gave away and not the choice itself. So he was crying, but he was crying for the material. So it wasn't exactly repentance for what he did. And so this warning is simple. Some consequences can't be undone, and don't go there. Verses 18 to 24 then goes on and talks about these two mountains, and I thought this was fascinating too. So the chapter is breathtaking right at this point. The author sets the stage of two mountains side by side. Everything depends on which side you have come to. Mount Sinai is something touchable. Mount Sinai is something that you haven't come to something touchable. It's burning with fire, to darkness and gloom and storm, and a trumpet blast and a voice that's so terrible people begged it to stop, a command that an animal, if even touched the mountain, would die. And then Moses himself says, I am trembling with fear. It's worth noting here that those exact words do not appear actually in Exodus. Most commentators believe that the author is drawing on Jewish oral tradition about Sinai and potentially connected to Deuteronomy 9. This is consistent with how the New Testaments use that tradition. Jude also does the same thing with Enoch. He points to a story that isn't chapter and verse in the Old Testament. The point is even that Moses, who spoke to God face to face, who led Israel, who was their mediator, he couldn't even stand at Sinai without trembling in fear. That's the mountain that you have not come to. You have come to Mount Zion. And then the author piles up sort of 8 realities in rapid succession. The city of the living God, heavenly Jerusalem, innumerable angels in festive assembly. The word in Greek is a celebration word, meaning joyful festival gathering. The church of the firstborn, enrolled in heaven. The God who sits in judge of all. The spirit of righteousness, made perfect. Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant. And sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. Wow. So let's look at that. So the last one, the blood of Abel, again, was Genesis 4, when the ground itself cried out for vengeance. It demanded judgment because Abel was killed. Christ's blood speaks better than that. It speaks forgiveness. It speaks about access. It speaks about welcoming us. The blood that should have condemned us because we condemned Jesus to death instead declares us welcome. And that's pretty incredible. And then where you were at worship now, not at a mountain of fire and terror or being unable to approach God, but you are now at a mountain of festive assembly with a mediator covered by the blood that speaks in your favor. And then it says that see to it that you don't refuse him who is speaking. And so here comes the final direct warning in this chapter. The people who are at Sinai, who refused the God who spoke on earth, did not escape judgment. How much less will those who escape? How much less will those escape when they turn away from God speaking from heaven right now? The lesser to greater argument is serious. Then we get a Haggai quotation, and once more it says, once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. The author reads this as a final cosmic shaking. Everything that can be shaken will be removed. Empires, economies, institutions, our bodies, our buildings, our possessions, all shakeable. Has been shaken, will be shaken again, and that's what remains. What remains is the kingdom of God. That's the only thing, because it is unshakable. It is not subject to be stirred. It is immovable. And I just love how that's phrased. We are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, not building it and not earning it, receiving it. It is a gift being given to us. And that means that stability doesn't depend on how well we hold on to it, how good we build it, that kind of thing. So we therefore need to be thankful, worship God with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. And then that line again, consuming fire, is from Deuteronomy. Same God, the God of Sinai and the God of Zion, are not an angry God or a happy God or a God and Father who are different from each other with different dispositions. I think sometimes people get this idea that Jesus is the happy God, the nice God, the one who wants to hug us, and God the Father is angry and vengeful. No, same God, same holiness, same. They're standing there, and we're going to stand before God. And because of Christ, the consuming fire that should have been our judgment, instead, we're going to stand there as children of God in one body with Jesus on the cross, as Luther preached it. It's exactly right. So reverence and awe are not a posture of people that are terrified that they're going to be destroyed. It's a posture of people who know that they almost were destroyed and weren't. They know exactly why. This knowledge produces worship. We are grateful that the thing that should have happened to us didn't. And we now are grateful. We have clear eyes. We see it properly. And we are in unshaken worship. What I'm going to meditate on is the joy that was set before him, Christ, who's set before Christ. He endured the cross, the scorn, the shame, the mocking, the punishment. And he saw the joy through that, and then sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Jesus endured all that by looking forward. He didn't pretend that the cross wasn't going to happen. He didn't try to escape it. He didn't try to ignore it. He still, though, held the joy of what was coming after that, even when he is standing there in front of Pilate, knowing what is coming next. And so what does joy look like for us right now? Not in the idea that we're escaping reality, but the idea that the promise and the person and the kingdom of heaven cannot be shaken, and waiting for that end of the race where we know what will come next. You can feel the real weight of what you're going through right now. There are people on this planet who are suffering because of Christ, but we can also be certain of the reality of where we're headed. What I'm going to pray about is that Jesus is our pioneer, the one who went first, ran the race through the cross for joy. He saw what wasn't visible. And, sometimes I think we grow weary of that we take our eyes off of it. We look at the rut instead of looking at the promise. We start looking at the waves around us, our circumstances and our fears, our exhaustion, all the failures that we've done. And so we ask God to fix our gaze so that we know the weight is heavy, and we get tripped up by sin. We get tripped up by good things that we're carrying that are just too heavy. And when the hardship comes, and there are times where we can't see God's hand in it, that we hope that God reminds us that he is forming us, even if it's a painful season. And that might be the most intentional fatherly work we have ever received. But, I didn't have a father who was there for me the way he should be. And now I do. I have a father who knows how to discipline his children so they can become the best that they are supposed to become. And, when the world shakes, we have to realize it's temporary. Everything in this world is temporary. Everything that anchors us to this planet is temporary. But what we should do is tie ourselves to the kingdom that cannot be shaken. And so we're going to worship with that reverence and awe. What I want to share with other people is that idea of verse 28, where someone is in a shaking season, someone whose health and finances or stability just feels like it's coming apart. And that we should be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, that someday it'll come a time where nothing else will ever be shaken. And we accept this with reverence and awe. And so what we can tell them, this person who is just being shaken right now, that everything that can be shaken will be. And it's not a threat, it's just true. And that when you're receiving something that shaking cannot touch, your faith, then everything else is nothing. Your job right now is not to stop the shaking. It's to worship God, whose kingdom stands when everything else is falling. And it's not to deny that life is hard, and life is often very hard. It's about being clear about what is permanent and what is temporary. And once you have that kind of clarity, then it changes how you carry yourself and what you look at when everything else is right in front of you. All right, everyone, thanks so much. Appreciate you being here. Boy, these chapters 10, 11, 12 are something else. I hope you felt that too. You can reach me anytime at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. And you can go to my website, jillfromthenorthwoods.com, if you want to see everything I do. Appreciate you. See you next time.